Saturn, please grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change. Mars, give us the courage to change the things that we can. And Jupiter, give us the wisdom to know the difference. It's the night of Mercury. I'm Rev Dev, and you're listening to Selene's Gateway Morning Edition. Today's hymn is the Orphic Hymn to Mercury from the Thomas Taylor translation, and it goes as follows. Hermes, draw near, and to my prayer incline, Angel of Jove, and Maia's son divine, perfect of contest, ruler of mankind with heart almighty, and a prudent mind, celestial messenger of various skill, whose powerful arts could watchful Argus kill, with winged feet, 'tis thine throw ere to course, O friend of man, and prophet of discourse. Great life supporter, to rejoice is thine, in arts gymnastic and in fraud divine, with power endued all language to explain, of care the loosener and the source of gain, whose hand contains a blameless peace, the rod, Crocution blessed, profitable God, of various speech whose aid in works we find, and in necessities to mortals kind. Dire weapon of the tongue which men revere, be present, Hermes, and thy suppliant here assist my works, conclude my life with peace, give graceful speech, and memories increase. And so it is. As always, we'll start with the tides for the day. The first tide of the day started at a low tide at around midnight. This will be when the low tides start every day. So while most of us are sleeping, so 12:11 a.m. The second tide comes in high and strong at 4:03 a.m. The third tide will fall deep and low at 1:10 p.m. And the fourth tide, a high tide, comes in at 4:40 p.m. As always, the tide times are the same for each time zone and don't need to be adjusted for zone because they're relative to where the moon is in your area at that hour. The shadow hours for the days are follows. The shadow period for the daylight hours is from 6:46 p.m. till 8:32 p.m. These will be felt the most by those with the nodes in Leo or with the sun in the same sign as the nodes. And the shadow period for the night hours is from midnight, so this would be May 14th, till 1:07 a.m. These will be felt strongest by those with the nodes in Taurus Libra or with Venus in the same sign. As always, these are great hours to work on remediation and to simply observe the frustrations that may occur during those periods of time. Observation is the strongest tool of the astrologer. For a whole list of shadow days and hours, as well as an explanation, please download Selene's Almanac Spring Quarter. It's for free on my Patreon. You'll also find an explanation for the energy tides as well. And now let's get into the transit for the day. So this is for May 13th of 2026. It's my solar return today, so that's fun. It happens closer to sunset, I think around 8 o'clock. But that's my personal transit for the day, is Sun conjunct Sun, also known as a solar return, giving you the chart for the year for your own year compared to your birth chart. As for the rest of us, the moon is making its way through Aries and it's going to sextile Pluto at around 2:34 a.m. Pacific, 5:34 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to conjoin Saturn at 11:10 a.m. and will carry that light for the rest of the day. So it's at 11:10 a.m. West Coast Pacific time, and that'd be about 2:10 p.m. East Coast time. So the moon conjoining fallen Saturn and Aries, as well and then carrying that light on through the rest of the day until tomorrow. That's going to be interesting and important to note. Though the moon makes this cycle every month, this is the second time that the moon has conjoined Saturn in this condition uh, this year. The first one was last month, just before the new moon. And this time the moon has more light. It's receiving roughly something a little over around like 40 or 50 degree, like 40-degree angle of light from the sun for this conjunction. And this is where the pattern is going to be like increased. So we're going to start feeling these Saturn moon conjunctions stronger as the year goes on because the moon's going to have more light to transmit into that conjunction. So we're going to be feeling it stronger. Uh, every moon conjunction is an implication of a sun angle or amount of light being fed into that. So it's interesting to pay attention to those. The other thing that's happening is Mercury is going to enter within a degree of the conjunction with the sun at around 12 p.m. Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. So pay attention to that. The scorching is going to continue for the mind, for the clarity of thoughts, but around this time, around noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, that's when the conjunction is really going to intensify. And some astrologers would argue that this is when the Kazemi period starts. I know other astrologers tend to hold tighter to a smaller range of degrees for the Kazemi, and the conjunction will perfect on May 14th, so that would be Thursday. But this is really going to be when that conjunction, like when it becomes super clear. One of the ways that I like to express this is if you're familiar with the Arabic parts or Arabic lots, one of the things that happens with conjunctions is the lot that those planets form together automatically gets attached to whatever the ascendant is doing. And so you'll want to so try to pay attention to where, this is how conjunctions really show up in our personal lives, because this conjunction could be happening anywhere in your chart, but it's automatically going to be generating that transit lot into your first house, onto your ascendant. So that's one of the reasons why I think these conjunctions as like floating transits really like make themselves known in our lives sometimes. Especially if you happen to have Mercury or the Sun as a Time Lord. These are the ways that these astrologies become these astrological moments, specifically conjunctions, like really resonate with us on a cross level. It's happening in different places in all of our charts based on what our rising sign is, but the lot that generates is going to be landing in your first house on your ascendant and is going to be relative to the function of what the sign Taurus is in charge of in your chart. So as always, pay attention, be observant, and, use it as a moment of reflection. You know, with Mercury and the Sun, we're talking about how we identify ourselves, as spirit, and in this part of our chart. So let's say you're a Leo rising. This is the sun stuff is always important for Leo risings, but this is going to be extra important because this conjunction is happening in your 10th house. And so the way you are seen or the way you want to identify in the public sphere is really your mental clarity around that. You could have insights into maybe some things that you want to change. If you get a glimmer of an idea of like maybe a different way that you want to present yourself, Leo rising, there's an opportunity to pay attention to those insights because they might actually be real and they might actually be important. And if you're a Taurus rising, this is going to be really about like not how you're being seen in the world, but like maybe fundamental ways that you think and think about yourself when you look in the mirror. So, that's just being astrologically educated. If you know where Taurus is in your chart, uh, then you'll want to think about that. Think about self and spirit and soul, and also think about communication and how you think and reason. Mercury is associated with thinking, but this isn't the type of thinking that's very. It's not the type of thinking that is coming from like an outside source. Mercury really helps us with the reasoning part of thinking, like taking all of the different pieces and figuring out which ones to keep. That's why this is what you see reflected in people that have a lot of Virgo placements and a lot of Gemini placements is, this part of their thinking. The Virgos are really into categorizing and organizing and making all of the pieces have their places where they operate at their best position. Whereas Gemini is really curious and is excited about finding all of the pieces and then deliberating about them later. But this is a different style of thinking than, say, like the inspirational style of thinking that the sun usually brings us. But we have these two types of thinking coming together. I'd like to think of the solar consciousness as the type of consciousness when we're trying to contact our higher selves or when we're trying to contact our inner fire, which is a good transition into our reflection for the day. The reflection for the day comes from the Knight of Wands. And this is the lovely Knight of Wands card from the Light Seers Tarot. I love that stallion in the background. I actually had this card come up pretty strongly for the Year of the Fire Horse. And I'm not claiming to know much about Chinese astrology. I do know more about their calendar system than I do actually their astrology, but um, this card came up as a pretty important card for the year, and I just really love that black stallion in the background. So the Knight of Wands. Keywords for the Knight of Wands is energy, passion, inspired action, adventure, impulsiveness, passion project, haste, scattered energy, delays, and frustration. What I like to say when I get the Knight of Wands, or when I pull the Knight of Wands, or when one of my clients pulls the Knight of Wands, is that go with the energy that you have and the projects that you already are working on. The Knight of Wands is a fixed fire energy, in my opinion, the way that I in the Rider-Waite-Smith system of aligning the cards with the zodiac, two of the cards in the Knight of Wands come from the Leo fire sign, the 5 and 6 of Wands, and so there's a determination to overcoming challenges that are very built within this card. But first, you have to get going, and that's kind of like the storyline that the three cards associated with the Knight of Wands give you. There's the Four of Cups, which is a place of satiation, dissatisfaction because of lack of nuance, because of lack of interest, lack of curiosity, and like the need to like go out and find new things. And then the Five of Wands is the challenge and the attempting to achieve. And then the Six of Wands is the achievement itself. And so the way that I like to tell this story of the Knight of Wands is something like this. The Knight of Wands was once a squire who felt unimpressed and uninspired by the reality of his existence or their existence. And so, in order to overcome this, they decided they needed to take on a challenge, or a challenge was presented to them that knocked them out of their comfort zone. And it isn't until they took the challenge seriously that they were able to become victorious in their efforts. And what you see in the Knight of Wands is that they have achieved knighthood. They've achieved the thing that they set are wanting to set out to do. And but it takes dedication and it takes putting that fire into practice. I also like to say that the pages, the page of each element grows up into the knight. And so with the Page of Wands, we see the concept of like a newly discovered fire or a newly achieved like sense of passion towards something, and but they're really clumsy with it and they don't really know what they're doing and they're trying to work their way out and around it. And when they become the Knight of Wands, they're actually able to like hold their torch, light their fire, hold their fire consistently, maybe hold their passion. They've figured out the kinks and the knots in the new thing that they've been trying to do, and now they've been able to build up a consistent rhythm. And it isn't until they learn how to make it their own is when they get to graduate into the Queen of Wands. And then when you graduate into the Knight of Wands is when you've gotten so good at something that you can help bring other people along or teach other people how to do the thing. And so that's what the reflection for today is about. It's about, finding if you've already found the passion, if you've already found the passion project, the thing that's really got you by the throat and just has you like gunning for chasing it, like find out how you stabilize that. How do you make it consistent? How do you stabilize your effort? How do you do it in a way that that helps you build on each effort as a success, you know? And this could be anything. This could be drawing. This could be reading a book, And what I mean by that is like sometimes people try to take up reading. And this is a good example of like habit forming, but like they the hardest part about reading a book these days for a lot of people isn't isn't reading. It's finding the time where that's the only thing you're doing. I myself am a fan of audiobooks. And one of the things I like about audiobooks is that, you can multitask, you can treat a book like a podcast and just do chores and stuff like that as a way to multitask. But actually finding the time to focus your concentration and read a book is a phenomenally hard task to do these days, especially as our time keeps getting shortened by inflation. Uh, but with all that being said, and then actually, no, before I go there, I also want to say that another way to reflect on this is if you're not feeling inspired, if you're not feeling energized, if you're feeling more of the heaviness, like this moon transit through Aries, Aries is experiencing this heaviness of Saturn, this weight of Saturn. I've actually seen some Aries people online building camaraderie about like, wait, where did our energy go? Like, why can't we go full steam ahead anymore? And it's because they're bearing the lead weight of Saturn on their shoulders for the next year and a half or so. And the idea, though, if you are feeling that way, if you're not feeling inspired, if you are feeling like more the Four of Cups or satiated or not intrigued. It means that it's time to get curious about something, or if you're struggling with inspiration about the things that you already care about, then maybe it's actually time to give yourself a break from them. Uh, we're raised in a Western culture construct. A lot of us are, not everyone. A lot of us are raised in Western culture construct that prioritizes output and the energy going out. I think one of the worst things that a writer can do for themselves is try to give themselves a boundary of like write this many pages for every day. Uh, Life doesn't work like that. The natural world doesn't work like that. Like even the sun that puts out light at as much of a constant rate as possible, like light still comes out in waves. And luckily, where we live on Earth, where most of us live, uh, Earth is spinning, and so it gives us a rest from that light. What I'm trying to say here is that you may be empty, and you need to fill your passion or your inspiration with rest. Um, we can't be inspired every day of the week, I'm sorry if your career hinges like your current way of making money to feed yourself and clothe yourself and comfort yourself is linked to a daily output of creative energy. But you should find a way to give yourself rest. An example of this is that I know an astrologer who put out a lot of like daily episode things, kind of like the way that I've been doing, and I've been thinking about adopting one of his practices, because one of his practices was that he would actually look at the astrology for the week and record all 5 days, like 5 or 6 days. I think he usually took the weekend off, but he would record all 5 days on one day at the beginning of the week, and then that would be already set for his output. And so by doing that, he wasn't like anchoring his entire week every day around like, oh, I need to record this episode. Oh, I need to record this episode. And so that's a way of like creating that more natural like ebb and flow of creative energy, that ebb and flow of how to utilize our passions. Uh, because like the moon teaches us through the ocean's currents, through the ocean's waves, through its own waxing and waning, the way the natural world teaches us through the cycles of the seasons, through, the waxing and waning of the length of days and nights. Everything needs to move in waves. Everything needs to move in rest. And that doesn't just mean going to sleep. Like that means changing the angle of our output, changing the direction of our energy usage, you know, finding a way to break up the stagnation by uh, angling our attention at other things and letting projects that feel stagnant that you're still in love with uh, have some rest. Otherwise, you can also just maybe meditate on what started your inspiration in the project. First of all, try to, like Mercury, be burnt down to the core matter of what the thing is until it is at its most base level and see if you can return to that level of inspiration there. One of the things that I love about the Light Seers Tarot, as you may know if you've been listening to this, is that they offer a mantra for each card. And so for today's mantra, it says, in pursuit of the imagined, I manifest this fire with infectious feelings of inspiration. In pursuit of the imagined, I manifest this fire with the infectious feelings of inspiration. In pursuit of the imagined, I manifest this fire with the infectious feelings of inspiration. And so it is. And as always, we'll wrap up just as the way we had began, as a way to close the circle with the astrologer's serenity prayer. And it goes like this: Saturn, please grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. Mars, give us the courage to change the things we can. And Jupiter, give us the wisdom to know the difference. May the fire inside guide you. You've been listening to Selene's Gateway Morning Edition. You can find my almanac at Patreon at Selene's Gateway. You can schedule a tarot or astrology reading from me at selenesgateway.com. And on social media, I'm known as the Esoteric Butcher.